What's up YouTube? So today I want to show you a couple of really easy to make sounds that you can make in Pigments to use in your Psytrance tracks. So I've been doing a couple of videos on Pigments and quite a few folks have mentioned that it would be cool to see more Psytrance orientated content with Pigments. And so yeah, this is just a couple of really simple and easy to create lead sounds that you can use in your Psytrance tracks. So the first one is a staple sound in Psytrance, it's the squelch, but there's a really cool thing in Pigments that you can use to randomly generate new squelch sequences. So yeah, what I want to show you today is how I usually use the sequencer inside Pigments to randomly generate gate patterns for us. So what we can do is we can just start off by creating the basic sound, and a squelch is generally created by setting the waveform over to a saw wave, which is about 0.668 on the position parameter. Then what we want to do is we want to apply a classic high-pass filter. We can change this out to any of the other kind of emulations if we want to slightly change the tone or the sound of the filter. But just to get things started, we're going to start off with just the classic HP36. Here we want to set the resonance up a little bit, and then let's set up an envelope. So to assign modulation, we just need to click on this little... You see where the name of the modulator is. We just click there and then we can drag any modulation onto a parameter. So the basis of the squelch sound is modulation of both the pitch and a high pass filter in tandem, right? So what we want to do is we want to modulate the pitch going from up downwards, and we want to modulate the filter going from down upwards. So we can set the modulation on the filter, we can drag it downwards. And the modulation on the tune, we can drag it upwards. Let's just see what we've got so far. Another key factor is you want to trigger notes that are quite low. I want to turn this filter up just a little bit because it's starting quite low. Cool. So now what we want to do is we want to fine tune the shape of the envelopes, right? So the decay, that's going to change the speed at which the envelope actually cycles through. Here what I want to do is I want to turn the sustain down so that it never gets to the point where the note is actually holding. If you notice, once you do that, if you hold a note, it just does that quick pluck and then it's over, right? But here what we want to do is we want to set this decay curve to a sort of rounded edge like that. So we get more of the body of the sound, right? And we can give it a little bit more decay. Just so we get the full sweep. Okay, cool. So now what we want to do is we want to go over to the sequencer. And we want to enable it by just pressing this on button like this. And the main thing here is we want to change the pitch to 0%, so that at no point it's going to change the pitch when it's randomly generating us a sequence. And then what we want to do is we want to use this auto regen and set it to 1 bar. So now every time it plays through 1 bar, it's going to randomly generate us a new sequence. And we can use this on off as well to kind of choose the amount of triggers that we want in a sequence. So we also have a velocity over here, which can randomly generate values. One thing I like to do here is to set it so that the velocity is modulating this decay ever so slightly. So we're getting that kind of variation in that shape of the pitch bend, right? And we can also assign it to the cutoff as well of the filter. So the rest of the sound is up to you. It's up to taste what kind of effects you usually like to use on the sound. I like to use just a little bit of distortion with these kinds of things. Maybe another filter here in the effects section. Because what that allows us to do is then it allows us to create some kind of sweeps. In fact, what we can do is we can actually put the distortion after the filter here. And then we can use the send to send it to the post, delay, and reverb. It might be a bit much. Let's just go over here, turn down the reverb, and turn up the delay. So I'm going to set up the macro here, macro 2, to modulate this cutoff. In fact, you know what'll be easier is if we just assign it to the mod wheel, because then we can just play it like this. And we can just record that in. That's cool. I like that. Okay, so the next sound that I want to show you is a really simple bell-like FM sound. Because this track is in G, I'm going to transpose this up so I can just play in C, because it's a lot easier for me. And we can start creating the sound here. So let's go over here and say new preset. And it's going to initialize us with a sine wave, which is actually the basis of the sound. We can tune up the MIDI controller a little bit, a couple of octaves. Cool. So here we want to turn up the release a little bit. Cool. Okay, so the basis of the sound is, like I said, just a simple sine wave. But what we want to do is we want to apply some FM to the sound, but only at the transient of the sound, right? We want the body of the sound to still be that kind of like lush sine wave. So if we turn this up, you'll notice that we're actually adding FM to the sound. And that FM is derived from this modulator over here. Right? So if we assign envelope 2 to this frequency modulator, at lower frequencies, we basically create like a donk bass, right? But at higher frequencies, it's more like a bell-like tone. What we want to do is we want to kind of turn this decay quite tight though. So it's just that little transient that we're getting into the frequency modulation. The rest is going to be just pure sine wave, right? The rest of the trick here is to play with this, right? So higher ratios tend to give you kind of more metallic sounds. Let's add a little bit of effect here. Okay, I want to turn the sustain down a little bit. So the transient is more pronounced. And we can add some velocity to the volume over here, so that each pluck will be slightly different in volume. I actually want to put that melody in. I like that. That's quite cool. What we can also do is add velocity here a little bit so that sometimes when it's hit harder, some of the FM comes through on the body. Okay, so what I also like to do with these kinds of sounds is also add just ever so slight amount of pitch bend to the transient as well. So let's add envelope 3 to the coarse pitch here. Okay, that's too much. When you can hear it doing that zoink zoink, it's too much, right? But then with this one, what we want to do, you hear it's just adding that little onto the transient, right? With this one, we want to actually open up the assign panel and set a side chain to the velocity at 100%. So what this is going to do now is when the velocity is higher, more of that modulation is going to get sent through to the pitch. So with this one, we also don't have to just send it MIDI. We could use the sequencer system here as well to do sort of like auto-generated arpeggiators, which is really nice. So if we set this to arpeggiator, auto-regen, damn, where did that come from? Okay. on that note, I'm going to leave it there. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you want more pigment stuff, let me know in the comments. If you want to support me, Patreon, link is in the description. I have a Patreon, the link is in the description, and I also have a store where you can buy all sorts of presets and samples and that kind of thing. Anyway, I will see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in. Cheers.